Chapter 1. Be Strong and Courageous. After writing my autobiography, Rena, the first 20 years of my life, only to answer questions for my children at the time, I vowed I would close that door to that part of my life and never open it again. Now for my children, I want to open that door again. I feel there are more questions that need answers. I want my children and grandchildren to look back to where they came from and have an appreciation of the place and people, their ancestors of so many years ago. I don't consider my life tragic or a waste because of the way I grew up. I know there's a special purpose for each of God's children, and there's a purpose for me. It took many hard years before I began to look at my life as a challenge. Then I began to realize I will only get one chance in this world, and I want to make the best of what life has handed me. In spite of the difficult circumstances that I encountered while growing up on the farm, I developed many interests in life that I'm proud of today. I know now there's not a child anywhere who doesn't need to be hugged and told he is wanted and loved. The only father I ever knew, my grandfather, Mr. Mack, whipped me till blood ran down my legs. Yes, I know the real meaning of child abuse. When I grew up, I knew that any child that was ever around would never learn from me what hate is, or know the real pain that I knew while growing up on Burke Place with my maternal grandfather. One day, I climbed the dark staircase. Very quietly, I opened the forbidden shrieking door that led into the attic. My young mind was full of questions that no one would answer. I picked up a bag. I think it was a pillowcase. This bag contained men's clothes, a pair of overalls, the kind Papa and the men worked on in the farm. There was a blue chambray shirt and heavy work shoes. As I held these clothes, I knew they were different from Papa's and the men who worked on the farm. These clothes, the shirt and the overalls, had a hole in them near the waistline. Dark stains were near and around the hole. My young mind told me these were the clothes my father, Vester Hammonds, was wearing on the fatal day, August 23rd, 1921, when he was shot. I knew the stains were blood stains, blood from Vester, my father's body, the same bloodline that goes through my children and grandchildren. No one ever told me the truth as to how and why my father was shot. This was one of the hush-hush secrets of Burke Place. I could hear Papa and other adults talking about when Vester was shot, but the subject changed to things of the farm whenever Vester's little girl was near. I went into that forbidden dark attic many times looking at things that had once belonged to my parents. Life for me and my brother was not easy with Papa and Mama, my step-grandmother. Even so, I learned many beautiful and good lessons on the farm. These have benefited me all my life. I learned early in life to listen and observe. When I was very young, I was possessed with an inquisitive mind, always wanting to know more. I look back now and know that it was a wonderful gift from God. I think my reasons for learning and listen had more fear than respect for the two people who were responsible for my rearing. I was afraid not to listen. I learned to listen to all kinds of sounds on the farm. I listened to my echo as it bounced from the hillside as I plowed row after row of cotton and corn. I listened to the cows lowing in the evening as I drove them home from pasture, waiting to be fed and milked. I listened to the small kittens meow in the barnyard as they begged for warm milk. All the barnyard sounds, the chickens flying from their night roosts, the dogs barking, the mules neighing as they welcomed a new day, all of these sounds were music to my ears that I loved. By listening behind closed doors, or whatever chore I was doing, I gained bits and pieces of things about my parents. The desire was always there to know more about my people. I knew that Papa did not like the Hammonds. I never knew if it was personal or otherwise. We were never allowed to visit them, or they visit us. My brother and I were reminded often that we were orphans, and that we were an added responsibility to the already large household of young adults and uncles who lived at the Burke Place. Sometimes with a hard slap across the face from Mama, my step-grandmother, who had so much hate in her heart, I was reminded, if it were not for the two of them, we would be in a home for orphan children. As a small child, I followed Papa everywhere and anywhere that he would let me. I helped him in the blacksmith shop. I helped him to feed the farm animals. Always my heart was begging for love. I wanted Papa to pick me up and hold me in his arms. Arms I knew were strong. I also knew that Papa had a big heart. Many times at the end of the harvest season, Papa would let me ride on the wagon with him. The wagon would be loaded with fruits of the harvest, sweet potatoes, dry peas and beans, several jars of canned foods. All this would be taken to the special pickup place for the home for orphan children. As I got older and was forced by Papa and Mama to quit school and work on the farm, only then did I wish I was in the home for orphan children that Papa supported. As a young girl, I knew very little about whiskey or that it was an intoxicating alcoholic beverage. During the Christmas holiday season, lots of relatives and friends would come out to the farm for a party. At this time, Papa was not a Christian. The holidays were not celebrated as Christians do. The guests would drink something that Papa poured from a jug into their glasses. They did this into the night, laughing and telling their jokes as Papa continued to pour from the jug. It would be many years before I would realize that the beverage Papa poured from the jug was intoxicating, that it made both men and women feel high and macho. It was then I remembered how Papa would strut around at these parties in his blue serge suit, telling his jokes and laugh. When Papa and his young wife had these parties, real soon we children would be sent off to bed. The next day we would be expected to do all the chores around the house. Many times after the party was over, with relatives and friends all gone back into town, the whiskey jugs empty, the food all gone, Papa would lay on the bed with a wet cloth on his head. Everyone had to tiptoe around and be quiet. Sometimes I would have to walk the 2 miles to Mr. Morris's store to buy headache powders for Papa. I would see him take 2 and 3 at one time. Sometimes he would be so sick he would vomit. It would be years before I realized that all this was the result of the party the night before. Papa was hard and very strict man. Many times after these parties he would lose a day or maybe 2 days of work from the farm because of his sick headache. It was then everyone suffered, even the animals. I've seen him beat the mules till blood gashed open their rumps because they'd gee when he wanted them to haw. At this time he would swear and cuss. Everyone around would cringe with fear. It was the same with us children. If Papa said be in the field by daylight, he meant it. Many times it has been so dark when we got in the fields to hoe cotton, we would have to wait for daylight to break. Even so, the beautiful sounds of the birds awakening and the sun rising in the early morning dew, God's glory reflected in the beauty of the earth and the songs of the birds was a marvelous gift from God to a young girl that I will always remember. Papa's early risers were not lazy, and none are to this day. Already, many morning chores would have been done by the light of kerosene lanterns. We learned early to earn our bread by the sweat of the brow. At a very early age, I was expected to make biscuits for breakfast as well as an adult. Sometimes with Papa's heavy hand or whack across the back with his razor strap, he would stand and watch me make the biscuits to his satisfaction. Biscuits along with butter and syrup usually made up the breakfast meal. There was never self-rising flour or corn meal at the Burke place. The wheat that made the flour and corn that made the meal was grown right there on the farm with labor from the family in which I grew up, and the tenant farmers or sharecroppers. Many times when I made cornbread or biscuits, there was never a recipe. After the bread started to cook, if I had put too much soda and it was yellow, which made it bitter, I would quickly carry the pan of bread out to the fruit orchard behind the house, dig a hole and bury it. Then I would hurry back into the house and start all over again, all the time nervous and scared, listening for the sound of Mama or Papa's footsteps. Many times when I was so scared and shaking with no one to comfort me, I would go into the bedroom where my father's picture was hanging on the wall. There, with tears streaming down my face and trembling with fear, I would ask him to please come back and take us away. Once I was very sick with pneumonia. I was unconscious for several days. One morning when I opened my eyes, my grandfather Hammonds was standing by my bed. I didn't know then that he was my grandfather. He knelt down by the side of my bed and talked to me. He had brought gifts for me and my brother, and a large can of honey from his home in the mountains for the family. I thought he was so kind and gentle. That was the only time I remember Granddad ever coming to the Burke place. In the days that followed, I fantasized my Hammond family even more. The question was always there, what was wrong? Why so much hate and bitterness between the two families? I went to the same school that many of my cousins did. I never played with any of them or socialized with them in any way. My clothes were different. My plain chambray dress was just like my brother's shirts. My big brogan shoes were like the boys'. I thought my cousins were ashamed of their country cousin. Their parents would come to the school and participate in affairs of the school and keep up with the child's progress. Again, my brother and I had no parents, no one who cared. The only parents we had either didn't care or they themselves were encased in a backwardsness and left everything to the teachers in school. I tried to excel in every class. Once my fourth grade teacher, who was always so patient and kind, said to me, "You have a good mind, and I want you to always use it." This was encouraging to me, and would make me work even harder. The schools would post the names of the pupils who had made all A's in the hall for everyone to see. Many times, my name was the only Hammond with a gold star by it. My teacher would put her arm around me and give me a reassuring hug. Only our Heavenly Father knows how encouraging her words were to me, to know someone had faith in me. I enjoyed all the learning aspects of school, the new friends I made, the games we played, my precious books, my teacher. I loved it all. But school for me was so short. Only after the crops were gathered in the fall and before spring planting began in May. If Papa needed my help by the farm always came first. Looking back to my childhood, how I felt about anything was totally irrelevant. My feelings never counted in any part of my life. If I had to stay out of school to work on the farm or scrub dirty clothes in a wood wash tub all day, it was shut up and do what you're told to do. This was the rule in my childhood home. Once Papa wanted me to go get on the bus and go to Sylacauga to buy something for him. I walked the 2 miles to the highway to catch the bus. I got on the small, overcrowded bus and had to stand in the aisle. I recognized a cousin sitting in a seat near where I was standing. I had seen her many times at school. I waited and waited, hoping she would share her seat with me. She never did offer a part of her seat or even speak to me. I was too timid and afraid to speak to her. I got off the bus that day with tears in my eyes and a lump in my throat. I wondered what was wrong with me. Was there some kind of stigma on me? I did not choose life the way if it was for me and my brother. We were victims of circumstance of which we had no control. Even so, I was more curious than ever. Someday I'll know the answers. I'll know why I'm so different. Only God knows the heart of anyone else. Only He knows how I hurt inside that day. Papa was a selfish, possessive father who would not let go. He ruled his household with a rod of iron. Very seldom were we children ever allowed to play with or socialize in any way with the neighbor children. Therefore, as children, later as teenagers, my brother and I, my young aunts and uncles, had a good relationship. While growing up on the farm, we had our fun. We had our secrets. The boys were forever making something for us to play with in Papa's shop. Their ingenuity and skills with the saw and hammer resulted in many happy hours of pleasure for all of us children that will always be remembered. As a child, I continued to fantasize my Hammond's family as Prince Albert-type country gentlemen with their southern belle ladies with big houses on the hilltop and black stallions grazing in the meadow. To that little girl, they were a people who could do no wrong. I was wandering in a strange land of make-believe. The day came when I had to take a strong dose of reality and face the hard, cold facts of life. My struggle for years to rescue the little girl inside of me. I felt she deserved to know how my parents lived and how they died. I had to have faith in myself and in my God. Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. I had sat quietly in the shadow long enough. I could never boast of higher education to my family, but by God's grace, the opportunity afforded me while living in Auburn, Alabama. My family never had to be ashamed of their mama. My learning to listen early in life has been of endless value. I know my family has faith in what I am doing. I have the love and support of each of them. Therefore, my search must go on. I refuse to walk again in the shadow of ignorance and guilt that was so prevalent in the way I grew up. The desire to know more about my ancestors is strong now than ever. Long as I live, I will continue my search.